Live from the court of Emperor Joseph II, this is Derailed Trains of Thought. Well, hello, folks. Welcome to Derailed Trains of Thoughts, episode 88. This is Timothy Deal.
This is Nick Hayden.
And we are dressed all in pomp and circumstance.
Oh, yeah. And there's some really good music coming.
Oh, there's some really good music. I mean, I am a little surprised. I always thought these royal courts were had a lot more decorum than they seem to have around here. Like, they seem to be a lot of drunk people. And
well, it goes with the times, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. It's a little throwing me off my element. But yes, the music is beautiful.
Yes.
So everyone seems to be enjoying themselves except for that one guy what's the word?
Glowering?
Scowling.
Scowling, okay.
One of those words that you normally see in books, but scowling, we'll say. He seems to be the only one not enjoying himself for some reason. I can't imagine why.
I don't know. I can't imagine there's any sort of politics or pressure or envy or anything going on around here.
Well, it is a royal court.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's free of all that.
Yeah. But welcome to another episode.
Yes, hello.
I'm glad the podcast brought us here safely. It's it's a relatively safe place.
Yeah, I think so.
I will say I do miss the indoor plumbing. Anytime we go back in time, it's always unfortunate.
You know, oddly enough, we don't actually go back in time as much as you think we would.
That's true. The podcast has a penchant for more fantasy and science fiction.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be.
Yeah, who knows? But I guess we should just, rather than tarry too long here, let's move on into story school. It's been a while since we had a nice meaty story school discussion on kind of the philosophy of
and the personal angst
of being a creative artist.
So here you are, everyone.
So we're going to try to delve into that here a little bit. Had branching ideas for how we would tackle this one, but Nick, you really latched on to the idea of when artists try to compare themselves to other artists.
Yeah, I don't think there's probably anyone who does any sort of art that doesn't at some point say, but what about them? You know, or am I actually good compared to
such and such?
Such and such. And I think the doubt and the fear and the trembling is probably pretty much a part of any sort of artistic endeavor, unless you're either very arrogant and or just
or naive.
Naive, yeah.
I mean, we probably start off our artistic or creative endeavors hugely inspired by another person.
Yeah. And at that point, you're not, say I'm inspired by Robert Jordan or Dostoevsky. You're not really comparing yourself, but you're like, they're up here and you're just starting to write. And you're like,
yeah.
And they're more your models. But at some point, you start thinking, especially people about your level, you're like, whether it's other fellow writers in school or whether it's, other people who are in a self-publish, if you're doing that, or, a small press, you start thinking like, am I better than they are? Or why is everyone reading that when that's junk? Or
yeah, I'm there with you. I remember feeling this most keenly when I went to that semester program in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Because before then I was gung-ho on kind of the movie thing, video thing. I was in a mass communications program at Taylor, but at that time it was sort of in a low period, a sense of transition. There wasn't a whole lot of other people there. So I felt fairly unique. It's like, yeah, I'm doing something really cool and new. And I go out to Los Angeles and I'm in a program with 30, 40 other students who are doing the same thing. We're all making these movies. And suddenly I realized, I really don't know my business nearly as well as some of these other guys do. And it was quite the not culture shock, but it was quite the adjustment.
I think there's at least two different comparisons we tend to do. One is on just kind of the nuts and bolts, like, do I do things like other people do things? Am I doing it right? And I think also is my stuff good? Validate me.
Yeah.
I wrote it because even with writing, pretty normal for as you're writing, you think, this is horrendous. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, this is horrendous. Oh, this is a work of art. And then you got to have, even just someone comment on it, like edit it.
Yeah.
And early on, you're always like, No, how do you say you don't like that? I planned all that stuff, and don't you see the symbolism? And
I had this thought into it, and
and they're like, this is boring. There's no ending. And you're like, what do you mean? It's perfect.
And it's tricky too at that stage. People over talk about millennials feeling entitled to certain things, and there's probably a certain amount of that's true. I think you and I probably fall in between Generation X and millennials. But when you're starting off in school, if you're a good studious sort of kid, you try to get A's and all this kind of stuff. You learn to kind of do what's asked of you, follow the procedures, and you get the sticker, you get the A+. You did what you were supposed to do. You held up your end of the bargain. But writing really any creative endeavor is so much more subjective. I mean, obviously, yes, you're going to get a better grade if you listen to the teacher and do the right things. But then there will come at some point where it's not just a matter of following the nuts and bolts, but are you actually creating a good product?
Yeah.
Sometimes just having the good idea is not enough if you're not executing or doing the right things.
And it's tricky sometimes because at different levels or whatever, when you're writing certain things, it might be a good product, but the person reading it just doesn't. There's a certain amount of subjectivity to it. Random thing. My sister, she's taking this college course right now, wrote this essay. I read through it. It's a nonfiction research paper. And it seemed, I don't know what they were expecting, but it looked good to me. And it came back, and like her advisor said, "Oh, it looks good." And then it came back, and it was supposed to be a pass-fail. Said, "Good, you didn't support it enough." Like, didn't give her any suggestions or anything. And she'd like changed like 2 things, and then it's like almost like they just read it wrong the first time, or were looking for something. Because it seemed like a strong paper to me. Sometimes you just have that miscommunication, at some levels. But I don't know why I got on that subject. But then the other problem with art too is that it's personal in the sense that when you write a story and someone critiques it, it's not just like they critiqued your math ability. Like, oh no, you did this problem wrong. Oh, okay, I'll fix it. It's like they critiqued who you are.
Or that's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like, especially early on.
Mm-hmm. I think this is certainly something that can kind of freeze you at a period if you can't take it the right way or just can't deal with it. Or you can become kind of bitter and it's like, well, no, none of my teachers are right. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I remember thinking, like, they just don't understand.
I mean, and
sometimes I still think parts of it they didn't, but that's just arrogance more than anything, probably.
I mean, it is true. Teachers will probably have different kinds of styles as you.
Mm-hmm. Especially certain types of teachers. You've been teaching one way so long, this is how things should look. Mm-hmm. Now, creative writing's different. Those teachers tend to have a little more.
Right. And you really do have to sort of learn the difference between, okay, which is a poor teaching style and which is something I need to actually learn from.
Yeah.
And I still get a little miffed. I had a couple of classes in my theater minor at Taylor that I never really got very solid feedback for why the teacher was grading me the way she did. Yeah. And I always remember, it's like, I could have become better at this thing if you had at least told me. But because of her health conditions or whatever at the time, she tended to grade me a little lower. I never really understood why. And that's just poor teaching.
And it's not just teaching, though. It's even like when you get beta readers or people who give you feedback. Obviously, you don't want people to just say, yes, it's great. I mean, you probably want that, but that's not what you want for the good of your story. But simultaneously, some people are very picky about very specific things. You got to figure out, is this concern valid, or is this concern, you can't just dismiss it because you don't like it.
Yeah.
But you got, and we're off a little bit from comparison, I see, into the editing, but it all kind of ties together because so often, I think for an artist, our gut reactions we have are worth tied up in how people like our product.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't like my story, I'm somehow a less person.
Right.
What you hate in my book, I got a 1-star rating, therefore I am somehow a flawed individual.
I do think you have to kind of have a certain distance from your own work.
Mm-hmm. And you learn it more, I think, as you do it more. But
it takes practice.
It does take practice.
I mean, that's the key main thing. I don't remember who said this. One of these things that someone put on Facebook and listened to it, and I feel like that's really true. A guy, I think on a podcast, was basically talking about how creativity, you have to do something for a very long period of time, and even realizing, we've been talking as if we always think of our work as being really good. Sometimes we look at our own work and like, this is terrible.
Yes.
We're aware of all the problems, involved in it. And part of the reason he pointed out that you realize, when you realize that you've got problems with it, is that you are honing your own artistic tastes. Audiences have great artistic tastes. Your perspective as an audience member is probably in some ways sharper than your perspective as a creator.
Yes.
Because you spend a lot more time ingesting stories than most people, will spend a lot more time ingesting stories and evaluating movies or TV shows or whatever than actually creating them.
And seeing your own thing from the outside is very difficult.
Yes. But the more time you spend actually in the creation process, he said, basically, eventually your skill will become closer and closer to your own tastes. To actually fulfilling your vision.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm much less touchy about my stuff than I used to be. That's always fun. When Natasha would start editing my stuff and she'd say this, I'm like, no, I'm not changing that. And sometimes I had some fast reason that made sense to me. And then later I'm like, no, I could have changed it. It wouldn't have made a big deal.
Well, and I think too, since you've been writing pretty prolifically for all this time, you start to get a better sense of not just taste, what's good and what's bad, but also your personal style.
Yeah. And
early on, you think you know what your style is, but you probably know your style a lot better now than you used to.
Yeah, exactly. And you realize that some things you thought were style is, but it's not as iconic. And you think, it's a tool you know how to use better. And I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I feel like you probably have less comparison the more you hone, not because necessarily you're as good as you want to be or as bad as you want to be.
I want to be the worst.
But in the sense that you spend enough time just saying, making a product that you know is some level good for you. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense. Like, I'm not going to write Dostoevsky, and I could compare myself all day trying to be like, but you say, but what I set out to do and what I can actually manage, this is a good version of it.
Yeah. Something I've found too over the years that, say, my fascination with Jim Henson, who was an inspiration for me early on. In more recent years, I've come to realize that I am not the sort of person that Jim Henson is, even though as much as I admire his work and his ethic and some of the ways he did things, I don't have that work drive that he did. I'm much more like a Carol Spinney. I think I told you about this. I don't remember if I said this on the podcast, but I was reading a book a little while ago that was about basically sort of Jim's work ethic, money ethic, kind of philosophy kind of stuff. And it mentioned that one time when Carol Spinney was fairly new to Sesame Street. Carol Spinney is the performer that's done Big Bird for almost 50 years. He's not the only one anymore. He's not quite retired. I think he's going to try to make it till Sesame Street's 50th anniversary. But anyway, early on when Carol Spinney was new with the Muppets, Jim said, we really enjoy working the late night shift, just working in really late until a job gets done. And it's like, are you that kind of guy? And he was like, no, not really. I mean, it's refreshingly honest. Like, I like to go home and go to bed and get a decent night's sleep every night. And so that's one reason, essentially, why he was such a good fit for Sesame Street. Because that was a much more regulated show. They kind of needed a stable puppet performer there so Jim could go off and do his crazy other stuff.
I think this is what I was thinking when, I said, sometimes we compare each other, like, is my story as good as your story? But sometimes we compare each other, like, do we approach writing the same? Do we approach creation? And, am I as driven as you are? I'm a failure because you've done these 10 things and I've only done one thing. But output or whatever, or how social media savvy you are.
But sometimes we're just wired differently.
And I think part of being an artist of any sort, not just writing and video, but any sort of creative thing, is figuring out what sort of artist are you? There was, when I was in college, I had to do an interview with a visiting speaker for a professional writing class. And he always said something I thought was really, I've always remembered. It was the subject of the whole article. We talked about, look, when you're writing for an audience of one. And he was talking about God. And that it doesn't matter all the other things, that you're writing for him. because I can have my bounce when I'm like, oh, I should do this, or why is that guy doing this, or how far, whatever comparison thing. But the real goal for, I think, an artist say, what kind of artist has God called me to be, and what sort of things has He called me to write, and to know that the gifts you have and the place you are is on purpose, and not just I have to be that guy. Your artist can say my worth is in getting the big sale or having the book on the shelf at Barnes & Noble or whatever, but that worth is never going to last, even if you manage it.
That's true.
The worth has to be built in deeper than that, in the I'm telling something true, whether I've always believed that a story needs to be the story you want to tell, whether or not anyone reads it. Mm-hmm. And that solves a lot of that sort of comparison audience problem. Not that you shouldn't, my personality is built not try that hard to get audience, and that's a whole different issue. But
well, and I mean, like we've been saying, you do have to balance your finding satisfaction in yourself, in what sort of artist you have been wired, created to be, but then also at the same time being honest with yourself on a kind of accountability sort of level.
Where are you weak?
Yes. Yeah. Am I honestly putting in my best in this, or is there more time I could be investing in improving certain things?
Not to use what you think is your personality as an excuse not to do things.
Yes. Yes, it's very true. And I'm talking a lot about investing lots of time in this. I'm perfectly aware that in recent years, really the only thing I've been very productive is this podcast. Well, I should say, and when I was working for the church, I was doing, I had creative stuff in that area too. Right now, for the last year and a half or so, it's really just been the podcast.
Well, I mean, you're very well that my main weakness in the whole artistic thing is like, hey guys, let's get someone to read my stuff, as opposed to like, oh, it's there, whatever, I want to.
Yeah.
And I think, there's that, you have a talent, how are you going to use it well? I mean, that's the audience wanted as well.
Yeah.
I don't remember what letter of Paul it is, but, he says, you don't judge him. He'll have to answer his own master. And I think we can't judge each other based on what we think they should do, but we need to judge ourselves based on what we think God would like us to do. At least for a Christian artist. I mean, if you're not a Christian artist, I don't know what you're going to think.
Right, right. No, it's a very delicate balancing act, but I think that's a good way of looking at it. How accountable are you for a Christian artist, obviously? Yeah. How accountable are you to God for your own gift? Think the servant who's been granted how many talents.
Yeah.
How are you investing those talents? How are you using that? And I think if you have that perspective too, it also helps with a lot of the whole pride issue. And it doesn't just become about yourself, it becomes about who gave you these gifts.
And I do think it's just as a practical measure, I think it's very helpful for creative people to surround themselves with 2-3 people who are honest critiquers, who will both say, hey, this is really good, in a way that you would say, oh, they're not saying that because they're my mom. And people who will say, no, look, this doesn't make a lick of sense. Because then it brings you down, it keeps you grounded, not just like, oh, this is horrible, but also, this is perfect. And I think, finding those people that you know that their sense of judgment makes sense, or they know what you're trying to do. I think that's a very, very helpful thing for any sort of creative person to have.
One other thing I've been thinking about lately, and this is where I'm going to tie into kind of that other idea a little bit.
Yeah.
So World Magazine's other podcast is a weekly thing called Listening In, where they interview leaders in certain areas. And a few weeks ago, I was listening to one by Andrew Peterson, who's an author and a songwriter. And I guess he hosts or works with a thing that they have a creative gathering once a year or something like that. And the interviewer said what he found really interesting was it wasn't just songwriters or authors or media people on all our traditional kind of what we think of as creative types, but also people working with wood or leather, all these kind of like craftsmen sort of things.
Like an Apple Festival.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing Andrew Peterson said in regards to that is that he didn't think it was good that we had made creative into a noun. Because it's very easy for us to think of, oh, I am a creative person. And there's a little bit of a snobbery to that, that I have these great ideas. I have a huge imagination, because sometimes we really do find our identity in this stuff, maybe more than we should.
Especially in a story-based culture that we live in now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can do that with really any profession or job that's above the above the norm.
And the attention economy, I want audience to feed my
meaning.
Feed me, Seymour.
But it struck me as also from a Christian mindset or culture sort of thing. It struck me even as sort of similar to what we do with ministers. Sometimes people elevate pastors or ministers above the rest of the congregation, like they're doing God's work, and we just
sit there and
listen and pay our tithes and do our duties,
as opposed to the nation of priests.
Yeah, where really God has ordained all his followers to do his work wherever they happen to be. And he pointed out, which I know Dorothy Sayers has made the point of this too, that really Christians or people in general, we're all made in the image of God, and God is a creative person.
And the first thing we know about God from the Bible is that he's creative.
Yeah.
Let there be light.
And so usually for people, that's just the very act of creating order out of chaos.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. I mean, whether we're making things with our hands or with our
cooking supper,
fixing their house, it's all creative in a way. So I think it's interesting to kind of put ourselves in that kind of perspective too. And that, yes, you've been given a gift. I think you reminded me the other day about God tasked certain people with
the building the tabernacle. That obviously God does choose certain people. Like, hey, we're gonna give you all these certain abilities so you can make this beautiful piece of art. But not everyone makes a tabernacle,
right?
But everyone can cook.
Yeah, everyone can cook. Going to Ratatouille. Man, we should visit Gustav's place sometime.
Should. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's always good to put things in the right perspective.
And I think that takes off some of that pressure of like, sometimes when you're the writer, you're the video guy, it's suddenly like you feel like you have to perform in a unique way, different than other people, as opposed to just. It is different, but as opposed to being like, it's like you're a separate species. And artists unfortunately like to think of themselves as a separate species. They enjoy that sort of, I'm this creative genius. And I think
I stand outside of humanity and watch and observe it.
Yeah, and I think that's unfortunate, because obviously you have a certain type of gift, but it's not necessarily a better gift than a person who does something what we would call more menial.
Yeah, and it's
a different purpose.
Yeah, it is a different purpose. And I think it's interesting because a lot of creatives who work together will recognize that other, here I use creative as a noun again, but a lot of artists, that's more accurate, a lot of artists who work together will realize that another person will see certain things that they wouldn't have thought of. Anyone who collaborates recognizes that's going on. I think we could learn a lot from, there's things that people who do work in more menial, your farmers, your factory workers, they have a different perspective of the whole world, and sometimes I think we can kind of afford to learn from that.
And sometimes it's truer than what we know.
Sometimes not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, with all the comparison, to wrap it back around there, is I just saw a quote, I had seen it before, but I saw it again, I think today on C.S. Lewis, becoming humble is not about thinking about yourself less. It's just thinking less. No, I flipped that around. Not thinking less of yourself, like, oh, I'm such a horrible, but thinking of yourself less often.
Less often, yeah.
Or just, yeah. Because thinking less of yourself. Thinking of yourself less often, yeah.
Because basically it means doesn't mean you're not thinking of things. You're just thinking of other things more often than you're thinking of yourself.
Yeah.
Hopefully that
we
makes
might
sense.
have to cut that whole thing out. Okay. And I think if you write enough or create enough, you get a certain amount of humility just because you've made enough mistakes. And that's okay. That's what art, kind of the learning process is.
Yeah.
You don't be like, aha, I'm out of high school, I will now write the great American novel. The culture honors those like auteurs, like they're 21 and they created this great thing and suddenly they're the genius and we're all just peons. And I think that's unfortunate.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess wasn't Stan Lee like 40 years old before he wrote Spider-Man? Or he was well into, I remember reading not too long ago, he'd been doing in comic books for a while before he really hit his stride.
And I've read, I can't remember the name. I think Robert Frost is one of them that did a lot of their best work after they were 50. But we so idolize youth and like this super genius sort of mentality.
So when they go hand in hand, and we love it.
Yeah.
That's not as often.
And then that's not the normal for most of life. But
Yeah.
anyways, I can say having no longer being that age.
You're still in your 30s.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean,
Oh, you mean in your
the
young...
18, 21, early 20s, just like it's a different perspective than 15 years later and you have kids or not, or, life, you've given more time. It's like when you run a marathon, you start like, I can do this. And then you're like, oh, wait, there's a lot more time and a lot more space and a lot more, I don't know, forgiveness.
Yeah. The nice thing, too, I guess, with art is a comparison to, say, sciences. We're not quite Edison having to work through 10,000 light bulbs to find the one that actually works. You still have to do a lot of creation, but you can make some interesting things in the process.
Yeah, and even your quote-unquote bad stuff has good stuff in it.
Yeah, and you can learn from it. Maybe someone else can appreciate it.
I think we've talked about before. Basically, it seems like a lot of the greats basically just tell the same story over and over again until they get it right.
Yeah.
We always talk about Miyazaki as like, there are like 3 stories in there. He just keeps doing.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, we could probably ramble about that forever.
Yes.
But we will spare you our rambling for now and move on to the soundtrack. I wanted to pick an artsy kind of video game, or at least a remix from a game that people put some creativity to it. I'd already done Mario Paint not that long ago, so I decided to go with Minecraft, which is a hugely popular game. And this is a remix called Squishy's Theme. It is by the Aura Calcon, and it's very nice and mellow. So I hope you enjoy. And we're back.
Hello.
Hope you enjoyed.
Yes. It's a little different than music I was hearing in the court here.
Kind of a blast back to the 21st century.
Yeah.
So it was kind of...
Maybe influence some of these musicians here.
Who knows? Ooh, that'd be interesting. Like
Where's
paradox.
Beethoven's 10th came up from?
One of those paradoxes. I never really enjoy those paradoxes though, because it's like, well, Beethoven wasn't actually that smart. He just kind of saw someone else do it.
Well, what was that the whole Doctor Who that one time when he's like, where did Beethoven's 9th come from? And then he just shrugs.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that was nice. That was a fun episode.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one. But moving on, we're going to go into our next segment.
We've had requested.
We has been requested, believe it or not. Pun times. I know I can hear some of you groaning right now, but my little sister Danielle wanted us to do some more pun times. Yes. So we will be happy to do that because it's been a while.
It has been quite a while. We'll see how our minds are working today.
Yes. Well, we've got all this beautiful music around us, so we thought for pun times, our theme we might go with classical music.
Yes.
So,
and if it doesn't work, we'll go somewhere else.
I don't know. I think this is a great note to bring pun times Bach on.
The Bach was that was good.
There's a certain Mozart to it.
Speaking of which, do you know what a Mozart says when someone steals his breakfast?
No.
Allegro my ego.
Allegro my.
Yep.
Okay.
You know what all musicians need?
What's that?
A staff.
You should say that's what all old musicians need.
Well, I thought assistants, like a staff.
Oh, okay.
So,
I get you now.
But that might work better. Old musicians might have been better.
Yeah, I guess so. So what's a flower's favorite composer?
I don't know.
Beethoven.
Oh,
sorry,
boy.
That was like Laffy Taffy level. Man, I'm very close to a couple, but I just can't quite get a handle on it.
That was pretty sharp.
I'm glad it didn't fall flat.
No, it was very natural. We're not having too much trouble with this.
Oh man, well, I wouldn't want to be the one to drop the bass. So I'm not sure that made sense. Thankfully, we don't work for scale around here. You know what position Darth Vader sings in the choir?
No.
Alto, easy.
Do you know why it's hard to figure out who's the composer of the Surprise Symphony?
It's a surprise.
Because he's hiding.
Oh dear. All right.
Wait, I got one more if I can.
I was going to say, we should be able to come up with 10 or more.
So do you know why certain people... Well, my brother likes to talk loud, right?
Uh-huh.
And when I tell him to be quiet, you know what he says?
No.
That's not my forte. Forte means being loud.
Yeah, okay. Okay. First it was like, Forte, you had us music too, but... Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's also don't we say forte for like what you're good at?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
no,
okay,
it's true.
that's
No,
good.
you're using the words right.
Okay,
It's
I was trying to make sure I use the words right.
when you have to explain it, it's a little.
It's not as funny.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, we need a really good singer to close this out.
Yeah. We just go to black like The Sopranos.
It wasn't really. It was sort of a music pun.
It's
but.
it's not really. All right. So, Tim, have I ever told you some of my favorite classical music?
I don't think so.
Well, I'll make you a list.
Nice. You can compose that whenever you wish.
Okay.
I don't know if we should repeat ourselves, but so maybe we'll just, I don't know.
Coda. I don't know.
Go to the bar, make some notes.
I'm not sure that's the key to ending this.
All right.
Maybe we should just take it down a step or kick it into high octave.
Kick it into the high octave. All right. Well, Nick, we've tried for too long, but I'm not sure we pull it off. I think they're just gonna say it's just the symphonies.
Dun, dun, sh.
Okay.
And
done. All right. Well,
I that was good. I enjoyed that.
we had some good ones. We'll trim that down. And I think it should make for some fun times.
Yeah. Fun times, everybody.
All right. Well, we will stop torturing you. We'll bow out for now.
Encore.
Maybe next time.
Okay.
But now it's time for It Came from the Interwebs. There's two tricky things about It Came from the Interwebs. I've realized. Well, okay, a couple things. One, you have to find something that's interesting enough that fits for the podcast.
Yeah.
Two, I have to. If I find it, then I have to sort of fight your natural instincts whenever you're online to share some. You find something cool. You just want to share it right away. And I have to save it so I can show you while we're recording.
Yeah.
Because usually I'm the one finding it.
Yeah. You didn't find these things.
But then the last thing then is like I sometimes worry that you're going to find it before I have a chance to do it.
But luckily, the internet's a big place.
Yes, the internet is a big place, and that's especially a possibility because usually, even though I say I'm the one finding it, usually I'm finding it because someone else shared it.
Yeah.
Because that's the way the internet works.
Yes.
It's a big sharing pool.
No one actually finds it first. It's always existed. Everyone's just sharing it. Like someone shared it to me somewhere. The internet's conscious is be like, look at this. Look at this. Look at this.
So you are familiar with on Amazon.com. Sometimes customers will leave goofy reviews,
like the gummy bears,
like the Haribo gummy bears. Apparently, give people huge digestive problems.
They're very humorous.
Well, this is a new way, apparently. It's kind of similar idea but different.
Okay.
Do you remember Nick Arcade?
I don't think so.
So this is like during the era of Nickelodeon game shows.
Okay.
So it's not just named after, cool guys named Nick.
Yeah, which it could be, but.
Yeah, it could be, but not this time. Nick Arcade was one of their game shows. This one was it was all video game themed. They answered trivia questions. You moved the little dude around.
I never watched that.
Sometimes they would have an actual arcade matchup. This is way before Let's Plays or anything like that. And the winning kids would get to go into, they would say that you'd go into the video game and play levels. Okay. So they were, on a green screen and like jumping, probably looking at monitors, jumping and interacting. I didn't understand how any of this worked as a kid. I thought they were actually going into a video game. I thought, that's amazing. So anyway, Nick Arcade is now available on Amazon as, for streaming.
Yeah.
You can buy sets of how many episodes and stuff, as well as a couple other Nickelodeon shows. But I guess because this is part of Amazon's format for digital video, every episode had to have a episode title and a description.
Okay.
Now, these are game shows, mind you.
Yeah.
So that said, let's take a look at some of season 1 of Nick Arcade. Episode 1 is Brian and Amy versus Nicole and Richard.
Okay.
A contestant named Nicole goes inside of a video game and has to jump over virtual rats in an attempt to win a set of encyclopedias. Host Phil Moore makes no attempt to convince her that it isn't worth the trouble.
So who put these on?
I do not know.
This is awesome.
Apparently, I don't know if this is a person who works.
aren't even a thing anymore.
No.
Which is kind of sad.
I'm not sure if this is someone at Nickelodeon or if this is someone at Amazon, but because if you look at some of these other
the internet saying, "Look at me,"
because if you look at some of the other shows, like some like Double Dare stuff, they apparently actually watch some of these shows, and because they describe the teams and what sort of things they had to go through. My guess is by the time they got to Nick Arcade, they just decided, what the heck, I'm just gonna. And so this is official episode descriptions. These are official product descriptions. I want to see these
in TV Guide
that have descriptions.
I want to watch that now.
I know, right? So here's for episode 3: Fuong and Marcus versus Joshua and Barbara. Joshua and Barbara are on the yellow team today, and they plan on playing as dirty as it takes to win that foosball table. Joshua knows it's wrong to bite people, but that hasn't stopped him before.
Those are awesome.
Episode 2, Megan and Chris versus Tavis and Michelle. Contestants Tavis, Michelle, Megan, and Chris mumble their way through some radical small talk with Phil Moore before facing off in the video zone. Chris chokes on Alpha Mission 2, and Megan still hasn't forgiven him. I mean, like, these are like riff tracks written into the episode product descriptions.
What I want to do now is go and like film like a 5-minute version of what I think that would look like. Wouldn't it be great? Like, just like a little like flash video of like them winning the encyclopedia, or
I know, right?
Or like a mockumentary style. Yeah, I remember when he bit me, and like he pulls up his sleeve and shows the bite marks.
It's so great because I do remember this show, and I remember it being. I mean, I loving it at the time. Then going back later and being like, okay, this is kind of goofy, you know. Okay. That kind of how nostalgia you go back.
Oh yeah,
and like, like this one, for example, episode 4 of season 1. This does not necessarily speak to the content of this episode, but host Phil Moore wears a tremendous sweater in this episode. The pattern is mesmerizing and the cut is ahead of its time.
That is one of the most wonderful things. It's like watching a mockumentary version of a game show that didn't actually exist.
Except it did. Okay, so episode 5. Which game wizard will these kids face in the video zone today? Murloc, Scorchia, Mongo, or perhaps the underappreciated Wizard of Soul responsible for this program's synthesizer soundtrack?
I feel like I want to do this with other TV shows.
I know, they should.
Like, you know, we're doing Babylon 5. Would be great, like episode 5. It's like Garibaldi's shirt is so rayon.
Okay, well, let's go. So those are some samples from season 1.
Okay.
You can go and read a couple more. When we get to season 2, the episode descriptions are basically just describing what the host is wearing. So episode 1, Phil Moore wears high-waisted jeans. Tiffany has to survive a virtual food fight's digital pizzas, binary pudding, and electronic tomatoes for her chance to win a VCR. Host Phil Moore rocks jeans so fresh, he's probably still wearing the same pair right now.
What mad genius came up with these things?
Episode 2, Phil Moore wears a Hawaiian shirt. Chris, Jennifer, Jeremy, and Tasha throw down in the video zone today with bloodthirsty... Wait, forget them. Phil Moore is sporting a Hawaiian shirt in this episode. When Phil gets tropical, that's our cue to zip it and listen.
Like some major Phil Moore fan
or something
out there.
Episode 3, Phil Moore continues wearing the Hawaiian shirt. Phil Moore has on the exact same Hawaiian shirt in this episode as he did in the previous one because he knows better than to mess with perfection. He's going to wear it forever. Episode 4, Phil Moore wears a gold shirt. Phil, what happened? The Hawaiian shirt is gone. You've got on this shiny gold number that isn't even tucked in, like you just rolled off your waterbed onto the Nick Arcade set. Was it something we did? Please bring back the Hawaiian shirt. There's nothing to do with the episode. The episode description has nothing to do with it.
That is amazing. That's a real thing. Makes me so happy.
I know.
That is awesome.
So then I had to go through and see. Not all the Double Dare have stuff like this, but there's a few. And if you know Double Dare, you know that's the show where basically they're just kids are going in muck and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Did they do that Finders Keepers show?
I don't know about Finders Keepers.
I've been watching that sometimes.
And some of the Double Dare seasons, they'll say just basic. Oh, so and so and so and so did this. Well, they go through this thing to get. Yeah. But then at some point, they just started going crazy again. Because like episode 1 for season 1 of Super Sloppy Double Dare says, if thousands of years from now, this episode is the only record of 20th century humanity, its viewers will believe we spent much more time crammed between 2 enormous slices of fake bread than we actually did.
Oh, man.
Or episode 4, Spilled Milk. This episode is so goopy, so squishy, so squirmy, so oozy, and so sloppy, you're going to need 9 showers just to rinse off the first layer of slime. Yet somehow Mark Summers keeps his shoes as white as his pristine teeth.
I want to know who did this.
I know. And this is talking about using your creativity in
a very unique way.
Very unique
and now, like,
ways.
Everyone on the planet can look at it.
Okay, I love this one. This is for season 2, episode 3. Squeeze them oranges right on my head. The Skipper Doos face off against the Lightning Bugs. I forgot they gave their team such ridiculous names. But when the object of the game is to let your friend throw an egg in your face for $40, does anyone really win? Episode 4, search through giant pancakes for flag. Andrew and Stacy are the atomic toasters, and they are ready to have any quantity of food hurled in their faces for exchange for a plastic watch and electronic keyboard. Oh, man. Or episode 7, the title is just, I'd trade all my friends for that Magnavox CD player. So you should really get on Amazon and go through some of these. I need to just actually purchase some of these sets of Nick Arcade just for that. Like Nick Arcade and
you'll probably sell more copies just because of those.
Yeah, those are the main ones.
Like now, I want to buy an episode just to see his Hawaiian shirt.
I know.
Like I must see this Hawaiian shirt.
Unfortunately, Legends of the Hidden Temple is not currently available on there. I mean, they actually have the list. It was available at some point. I'm guessing they must have started rerunning them again because I know they did a Legends of the Hidden Temple movie. So they must have pulled them off of Amazon. Most of these are a little more straightforward again. You can tell they actually watch these things because they say stuff like, will it be Hector the Trumpeter or Sabrina the soccer star surviving the temple run to score a remote-controlled car, a portable CD player, or a trip to the Cayman Islands?
It sounds like they start with one like that, and eventually they're just like, I don't even care. Like, who cares about the CD player?
Exactly. Even toward the very end of the season, you get things like, Kirk Fogg's got 3 minutes on the clock. Is it enough time for the daring red jaguars or the lethal green monkeys to complete the temple run and leave Orlando as ravaged and battle-scarred victors clutching a totally radical boombox? like you feel like that's the point where they first started easing some ridiculous.
I think they like gave some intern like go for it, and he's just like, no one's even going to want to read this stuff. Let's just
because like people have fond memories of these game shows, but no one's really going to pay attention to episode descriptions for a game show. No. So anyway, that is
awesome.
That's delightful. You should go check that out. The other thing I thought it'd be fun to talk about today, because I figured this would not be a huge take up a lot of our time. So, we've been talking a lot about Babylon 5 over on the Weekly Hijack.
Yes, a lot.
So I thought
2 seasons worth.
I was looking at Wikipedia, and they actually have a link to, you can look up on the Internet Wayback Machine or Internet Archive, whatever they call it. You can find the actual websites for the show while it was on.
Oh.
And it's really nice and old school.
Old school 90s.
Kind of 90s.
Probably
look.
rotating GIFs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's one of those throwbacks to seeing how it's always interesting looking at those old pages.
You spent so much time to get those things to spin and the text to scroll across.
It's not all quite that bad. But one of the things I did find interesting, I thought I should show you, and we'll have to show Brianna, who is our Babylon 5 newbie.
Yep.
There are still some videos that you can download, some little like videos they made just for the site.
Oh, really?
And I thought I'd show you a couple here real quick. The only thing I had that could play these videos, because they're so old and most of the players have updated since then. I had to open up Real Player to do that.
Real Player.
Yeah.
That's back in the day.
It is back in the day. And you notice this video is, in each video, none of them are over like a megabyte big.
Oh, yeah, because
no one had great internet speed. So that means each video is about the size of a postage stamp.
That's awesome.
That's no exaggeration. So here's one of them.
This is Captain John Sheridan. Greetings from Babylon 5.
So yeah,
that's hilarious.
There's a whole bunch of these things. Let me see if I can just pull these in a playlist so it's a little easier.
I mean, that's actually pretty early for doing stuff like that, probably.
Yeah. I'm not sure the year for these exactly. Based on some of the clips, I want to say maybe season 3.
Okay. That's probably when it first started, really.
Yeah.
I think 3 and 4 where
it's peaks for...
I could be wrong on that, but that'd be my guess.
Stand by while we check out your system. I see you haven't backed up lately. What are you, nuts?
So there's a fair bit of like early computer humor in some of these.
Do not look any further. All life is transitory, a dream. We all come together in cyberspace at the end of time. If I do not see you, I'll see you again soon, in the place where no shadows fall.
Aw, that was very nice, Lynn. Oh, so this is one of the few... I wasn't able to there were some of the bigger files I wasn't able to download, and I think they were actually clips from the show, kind of like this one.
I never thought I would be saying this, Molari, but...
Oh, man, that scene.
For the health of your Emperor, and perhaps to your health as well. to the Emperor. And thank you.
Well, they're going to pick a scene.
Yeah.
That's what to do.
I mean, that's like way before YouTube, people are, because people love rewatching certain moments of stuff. And
that's super early.
That's way ahead of the game there.
You've just committed a fatal error. There's nothing we can do for you. Dismissed.
I'm guessing some of these, I don't know if there's any way that you could like have videos pop. I remember, back in the day, you used to have sounds that you could trigger to play if certain things happened. I don't know if that's what that sort of thing is for.
Man, I feel like you put it on your phone when things happen, be like ringtone or
it's like, oh, sorry.
Hey, here's a secret. Going online is my first favorite thing in the universe.
The Minbari government does not recognize your comm system. Please try again.
all these errors.
These error messages. I
wonder if they set up like if you went to the wrong page or something.
Oh, maybe.
That'd be hilarious.
I don't know, possibly.
I'm not playing games. As of right now, I'm relieving you of your duties. Report to the photo section and start downloading immediately.
That's hilarious.
It makes me kind of want to. It'd be fun to have a Babylon 5 CD-ROM game from the day, and these things would trigger.
There are rituals to follow when in company of online guests. Otherwise, the meeting is no longer sanctified.
As head of security, I'm exercising my right to examine all your files. And you've got some serious explaining to do.
Uh-oh. Garibaldi caught you.
We are the universe trying to figure itself out. Unfortunately, we as software lack any coherent documentation.
I'm not sure what that one means.
Captain, we have visitors from Extra Online in Bay 14. You better get over there.
Only one thing is impossible for a Vorlon to understand. How to change the IRQ setting in any DOS computer.
No, see, that's old school computer humor.
Man, that's awesome, though.
Welcome to Babylon 5 Online. You will enjoy the experience, providing you survive.
And that's all we got.
That's very Ivanova, too.
It is very Ivanova. So anyway, I thought you would enjoy those.
What's fun of that is even back then they were having lots of fun with the internet.
With the medium. Yeah.
And from what I understand, Babylon 5 was one of those early shows that had like X-Files that the internet like fan base was very interactive with the writers.
I think J. Michael Straczynski was even unusual for these days. I don't think very many people get that sort of behind-the-scenes interaction while the show is being put out like he did way back then.
Yeah, he answered like everything from, I mean...
Now, granted, I don't know if maybe part of that is because when he first started doing that, the internet was in some ways a smaller place.
Yeah.
He was really just talking to the most hardcore, and now...
And it wasn't like a message board or something. It wasn't even, it was like Twitter or what we have now.
Yeah, which I suppose, I guess, the Twitter would be closer to the modern equivalent of creators interacting with fans.
Yeah, he couldn't have done it. He explained things in too many characters.
Yeah. He went way more in detail.
There's so much... That's what... I'm so grateful someone collected so much of that for... The Lurker's Guide.
For posterity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyway, if that gave you a little taste of what some of the characters are like, it means you should be checking out the Weekly Hijack.
Yeah, it's great. Babylon 5, I'm going through. We're almost done with Season 1 at the time of this recording.
As time of release, yes. Actually, by the time this gets released, we may have just finished Season 1. Yeah. The release of Weekly Hijack is way behind where we currently are. But it's been fun.
And just so you know, if you want to watch Babylon 5, go90.com, which does not pay us, but you need to go watch it. So
we want people to watch Babylon 5.
You need to watch Babylon 5.
So just so you can understand what we're talking about.
And look, if Season 1 just seems slow to you, listen to the Hijack. It makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah, it definitely adds to it. I mean, that might be... I guess if you really want to, you could just kind of wait until we finish each season and then go marathon it. But, if you don't want to get too far behind, this is the perfect time to get caught up with us. So you can watch it alongside us.
Yes, sounds good. We
should also plug, we've been much more active. We started up the Twitter.
The Twitter. It's a thing, apparently. Have you heard of this Twitter thing?
We've been Twittering a bit this month. We actually decided to launch our Twitter basically beginning of May.
Yes.
And we've been
Try to keep it active.
Trying to keep it active. I've been doing a little bit of, I've been going along with Tough Pigs, a Muppet fan site that has been doing a hashtag called Muppetational So if you follow us at Derailed _trains.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's our Twitter handle. You can see me post a little Muppet something every week or every day.
We'll put music there. We'll link old podcasts that we bring, just for fun. Follow us. Tell us what you'd like to see from our Twitter account.
Yeah. It's another way for us to get more contact info for you.
And there's stuff that comes up that doesn't fit in the podcast. We're like, oh, that's interesting. Bloop.
Yeah, exactly. I hope you check it out. And then, of course, we're still at Facebook and derailedtrainsofthought.blogspot.com.
Yes.
All the places. Nick, I think it's time for your soundtrack.
All right. So for my soundtrack, I figured we were talking about comparing each other and feeling lesser than other people. I figured kind of the quintessential idea that in video games it would be Luigi. He's just not Mario.
Always second banana.
I mean, he's better than Waluigi. But
Waluigi. Waluigi hates us.
So I picked a song from Luigi's Mansion called That Balcony Thing, remixed by Zalef.
Zalf? I have no idea.
Zalef? Yeah.
Zalef?
Zalef? I don't know. However.
One of those. Apologies to whoever you are. Zalef.
But I've never actually played Luigi's Mansion. Have you played this?
I have played Luigi's Mansion. I don't remember if I finished it, but I played quite a bit.
I like to try it.
That's fun.
But anyways, it's a kind of a technically fun. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, I'd really like this song. So I thought I'd play it for you all. And I'm not sure it would go over well with the people here. No,
it's a weird. I don't think they'd be super into electronic-y kind of stuff.
Not yet. No,
they're not ready for that yet.
No, we'll electronifize their music later.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Anyways, yes.
Well, thank you for listening to Derailed Trains of Thoughts. We hope you can join us next time. Until then, this is Tim.
This is Nick.
Bye-bye.
Adios.